The gunshot echoed through the marble foyer. As the Korean Mafia boss bled out on the floor, his new maid didn't scream or call for help. She moved. In 90 seconds, using a torn curtain and relentless pressure, she stopped the bleeding that would have killed him. The debt he now owes her isn't money. It's loyalty. And in his world, that is a far more dangerous currency. Her name is Anya, and to the world, she is just a maid. But her training didn't come from a housekeeping manual. It came from a battlefield. He is Min Jun, a kingpin whose empire is built on fear and calculated violence. Now, his life depends on the silent woman who was supposed to be invisible. This is the story of how a single, bloody act of skill creates a bond more unbreakable than any contract, and forces two people from opposite worlds to question everything they owe each other. 1 year earlier, Anya was Sergeant Anya Clark, a 68 Whiskey combat medic with the U.S. Army's 10th Mountain Division. Her world was one of dust, adrenaline, and the sacred weight of a tourniquet. She wasn't just trained. She was forged in the precise art of tactical combat casualty care. Her hands knew how to find a femoral artery in the dark, how to pack a wound with gauze in under 18 seconds, how to keep a human being from bleeding out in the golden hour before evacuation. That was her purpose. Until the day an IED on a road outside Kandahar didn't just injure her squad, it shattered her nerves. The official diagnosis was severe PTSD. The Army gave her an honorable discharge, a medal, and a pension that barely covered rent in a city she no longer recognized. Civilian life was a different kind of battle. The hypervigilance that kept her alive overseas made her jump at car backfires. The memories made sleep a war zone. She drifted through a series of jobs, security, EMT work, but the triggers were everywhere. The smell of antiseptic, the wail of a siren, it all transported her back. She was a ghost in her own life, her most valuable skill now a source of paralyzing flashbacks. Rock bottom was a studio apartment in Queens and a final eviction notice. That's when the cryptic listing appeared. Live-in domestic, discretion required, exceptional compensation. The interview was held in a sterile office in Midtown with a man who gave his name only as Mr. Kim. His questions were less about cleaning and more about isolation. Do you have active family ties? Are you capable of seeing nothing? The salary offered was 5 times the market rate. For a woman with $1,100 to her name and no allies, the red flags just looked like lifelines. She said yes. She arrived at the mansion in Alpine, New Jersey with a single duffel bag. The property was less a home and more a fortress. High walls, gatehouses, cameras tracing every angle. Min Jun, they told her, was a reclusive import-export magnate. But men in sharp suits with watchful eyes and flat bulges under their jackets didn't guard coffee bean traders. Anya knew power when she saw it. This was the seat of a kingdom. Their first meeting was brief. Min Jun sat behind a vast desk of dark wood, his posture perfect, his gaze assessing her with the cold efficiency of a predator scanning new terrain. He was younger than she expected, maybe 35, with an intensity that seemed to vibrate the air around him. You will maintain the residence. You will not enter the West Wing. You will be invisible. Do you understand the meaning of true silence? Anya, accustomed to command structures, simply nodded. Good. Your past as a soldier is of no consequence here. Here you are the maid. He knew. Of course he knew. He vetted her. In his world, information was the first layer of armor. The routine was established with military precision. Her days were a silent ballet of polishing, arranging, and anticipating needs before they were voiced. She learned that Min Jun took his coffee black at 7:15 a.m., that he preferred the blinds at a 45-degree angle to mitigate afternoon glare, that his late-night meetings in the study were always followed by the soft clink of a single glass of whiskey. She was a ghost in his machine, and for months he treated her as part of the furniture, necessary but unremarkable. But Anya noticed everything. The procession of nervous men who arrived with briefcases, leaving with pale faces. The fragments of conversation in rapid Korean she overheard, words like territory and compliance. The night she found a fleck of blood, dried and brown, on the marble floor of the foyer, which was spotless by morning. This was not just business. This was a syndicate. Minjun wasn't a magnate, he was a Kumicho asterisk, a boss. And his calm demeanor was the steady surface over very deep, very dangerous waters. First crack in the wall between them happened because of a storm. A late summer hurricane knocked out power to the estate. Anya, using her army-issue flashlight, was checking the basement generators when she heard it, a sharp, hissed intake of breath from the study. She found Minjun in the dark, one hand braced against his desk, the other clenched at his side. A old injury, a bullet wound to the shoulder she later deduced, was screaming at him from the pressure change. He glared at her intrusion. "Get out." She returned not with words but with action. From her duffel she retrieved a roll of kinesiology tape, a relic from her own physical therapy. She set it silently on the side table beside his whiskey glass, then vanished back into the shadows. The next day the roll was gone. He never thanked her. But the following week, a brand new high-end first aid kit appeared in her cleaning supply closet, not the store-bought kind. A professional trauma kit complete with Israeli bandages, chest seals, and a cat tourniquet. It was an observation, an acknowledgement, and a test, all in one. This silent dialogue continued. She would find a book on architectural design left open on a common room table, a topic she'd once mentioned in passing, enjoying. He would discover his favorite scotch restocked before he could order it. They were speaking a language of actions, building a fragile, wordless understanding across the chasm of their stations. Then the atmosphere changed. The meetings grew more frequent, more tense. Minjun's phone rang at all hours. New, harder-faced guards appeared on the perimeter. Anya overheard the name Yang spoken like a curse. A rival faction was making a move, challenging Minjun's control over the port distribution networks that were the lifeblood of his operation. The cold calculus of power was tipping toward war. The night before the assassination attempt, Minjun called her into his study. He was staring at a blueprint not of a building but of the estate's security grid. "Tomorrow you will clean the East Gallery in the morning only. After noon you will remain in your quarters. Do not deviate." His voice held no room for question. "Is there a threat, sir?" Anya asked, the soldier in her overriding the maid. He looked at her then, a long, measuring look. "There is always a threat, Sergeant Clark. Tomorrow it simply has a name." He used her rank. It was a warning and a bizarre kind of respect. He was telling her to lock her door. But Anya Clark was not built to hide. And the next day, when the silenced shot broke the quiet, when she heard the heavy thud of a body hitting marble and the shouts of guards too far away, she didn't barricade herself in her room. She moved toward the sound. Because after a year of silence, the call of a life in the balance was the one thing that could make her forget her own fear. What she saw in the foyer would change everything. Not just for Minjun, bleeding out on the floor, but for her. Because the man with the gun, now turning it toward the only witness, wasn't a stranger. It was Mr. Kim, the man who hired her, and he was smiling. Time didn't slow down, it sharpened. Anya saw everything, the smug curve of Mr. Kim's smile, the slight tremor in his gun hand, the way Minjun's blood was already soaking through the makeshift pressure dressing she'd torn from a linen curtain. The boss was conscious, his dark eyes burning with fury and pain fixed on his betrayer, but the gun was on her. "A shame," Mr. Kim said, his voice smooth. "You were an excellent investment, quiet, broken, predictable. I didn't account for your obsolete heroism." He wasn't just a disloyal lieutenant. He was the inside man for Yang. Hearing her, a traumatized vet with no ties, wasn't an act of charity. It was strategic. She was the perfect invisible pawn, meant to be a witness or collateral, never a variable. Her saving Minjun had just made her a loose end. Anya didn't speak. She assessed, 3 meters between her and the gunman. Minjun was a non-combatant on the ground. The shouts of approaching guards were still too distant. Her eyes darted to the trauma kit she'd mentally cataloged weeks ago, mounted behind a decorative panel 5 feet to her left. Useless. Her only weapon was the one Mr. Kim underestimated, her knowledge of how bodies fail. He took a step closer, finger tightening on the trigger. "Goodbye, Sergeant." In that final second, Anya didn't flinch. She spoke directly to Min Jun, her voice a calm, commanding rasp she hadn't used since Kandahar. "Cough, now hard." Min Jun, understanding flashing in his eyes, obeyed. He convulsed, a wet, hacking cough that jerked his torso and sent a fresh spray of blood onto the marble. Mr. Kim's aim instinctively flickered toward the sudden movement, the threat he was there to finish. It was a quarter-second distraction. Anya moved, not toward the gun but laterally, her hand snatching a heavy crystal vase from a pedestal. She didn't throw it at him. She hurled it at the wall behind his head. The explosive shatter of crystal was deafening in the cavernous foyer. Mr. Kim's combat reflexes made him duck and turn toward the new, loud threat behind him. It was all the time the real threat needed. From the ground, Min Jun's hand shot out, grabbing the ankle of his former lieutenant. It wasn't a strong grip, but it was enough to disrupt balance. Anya was already crossing the distance. She didn't go for the gun hand. She drove the heel of her palm upward into Mr. Kim's diaphragm, just below the sternum. The air left his lungs in a whoosh. The gun clattered to the floor as he doubled over. The next moments were a violent blur. Anya kicked the weapon away, sent it spinning into the shadows. She grabbed Mr. Kim's wrist, twisted it into a lock she'd learned for controlling combative patients, and drove him face first into the wall. By the time the first two bodyguards burst into the foyer, guns drawn, she had their boss's would-be assassin pinned, gasping, and utterly neutralized. She was breathing hard, the adrenaline a roaring tide in her ears. The guards stared, stunned, at the scene. Their boss bleeding on the floor, the maid subduing the head of security. "Take him," Min Jun grunted, his voice thick with pain. The guards surged forward, wrenching Mr. Kim away. His smile was gone, replaced by pure hatred directed at Anya. As he was dragged off, he spat words in Korean. Min Jun translated, his gaze locked on Anya. "He says Yang will peel the skin from my savior for this." The immediate threat was contained, but the crisis was just beginning. Min Jun was going into shock. His skin was clammy, his breathing rapid and shallow. The curtain dressing was saturated. Anya knelt beside him, her medical brain overriding the chaos. "I need the proper kit, now." She barked the order at the remaining guard, who jumped to comply. The professional trauma kit she'd found in her closet was brought. She ripped it open, her hands moving with automatic precision. Off came the soaked linen. She assessed the wound, a through-and-through to the lower right abdomen. It had missed major organs by a miracle, but a branch of the iliac artery was nicked. That was the gusher. She packed the wound with hemostatic gauze, applied direct pressure with both hands, her weight behind it. "I need a pressure infuser bag and saline. If you don't have it, get me a clean bag and tubing." The guard ran. Min Jun watched her, his consciousness wavering. "The bullet," he whispered, "is out. Clean pass." "You're lucky," Anya muttered, not looking up, her focus entirely on the pressure point. "Lucky," he echoed, a ghost of irony in his voice before his eyes fluttered shut. "Hey, stay with me." Anya's voice cracked like a whip. She checked his carotid pulse, thready but present. The guard returned with an actual IV setup from a more extensive medical stash. Of course they had one. She tied a tourniquet, found a vein, and started fluids, fighting to keep his blood volume up. She was no longer Anya the maid. She was Sergeant Clark, and her patient was crashing. For the first time in a year, the PTSD fog didn't descend. The emergency was too real, too present. There was no room for memories, only procedure. It took 12 minutes for the private medical team to arrive, a doctor and two nurses who clearly knew the drill. They worked in efficient silence, taking over from Anya. As they stabilized Min Jun for transport to a private surgical suite elsewhere in the compound, the lead doctor glanced at her makeshift work. Tourniquet timing was good. Packing saved him. "Who are you?" Anya, covered in Min Jun's blood, just shook her head and stepped back, the adrenaline crash starting to hit her like a physical blow. She was escorted not to her quarters but to a small, secure sitting room. A female guard brought her a change of clothes and a basin of water to clean up. The silence was heavy. Through the window, she saw the organized panic of a fortress breached. sweeps of the grounds, cars coming and going. The kingdom was under attack and she was at its epicenter. Hours passed, night fell. Finally, the head bodyguard, a man named Yi, entered. His face was grim. "He is out of surgery, stable, he wishes to see you." Anya followed him through the maze of the mansion to the forbidden west wing. The door to Minjun's private chambers was open. He was propped up in a hospital bed, machines beeping softly, his face pale but his eyes alert and terrifyingly awake. The room was sleek, modern, and devoid of personal effects. A command center. He dismissed Yi with a nod. The door closed, leaving them alone. The weight of what had happened filled the space between them. "You disobeyed a direct order," he said finally, his voice weak but clear. "You were told to stay in your quarters." Anya met his gaze. "I was trained to move toward the sound of gunfire. You were hired to clean." "Today," she said, "I did." A long silence stretched. Minjun studied her, his expression unreadable. Kim talked before he was persuaded to stop. He shifted slightly, wincing. "You were not a random hire. Yang's faction profiled you. Your PTSD, your isolation, your skills. They believed you would be a non-factor or a convenient scapegoat. They were wrong." He paused. "Because of you, I am alive. Because of you, we have identified the rot within my organization. This creates a debt." Here it was, the moment the hook promised. Anya straightened. "I don't want money." "I know," Minjun said. "That is what makes this complicated. In my world, a life debt is absolute. It cannot be settled with a wire transfer. It binds people. It changes equations." He took a pained breath. "Kim was my right hand for 7 years. His betrayal was possible because he understood the old rules, the rules of money and fear. You operated on a different code, a soldier's code. That is a variable I do not know how to calculate." He was admitting vulnerability, not just physical but strategic. Her actions had disrupted a deadly calculus. "What happens now?" Anya asked. "Now," Minjun said, his eyes hardening, "Yang knows he failed. He will assume I am weak, vulnerable. He will strike again and soon at the business itself. The ports, the shipments, the revenue. He will try to strangle me financially while I recover." He looked at her, a decision solidifying in his gaze. "You have 2 choices. You can take the money I will give you regardless and disappear. My people will help you vanish. You can be safe. Lord. Or you can stay, not as a maid. Your cover is obliterated, but as a consultant. Your skill set is unconventional but proven. Your perspective is outside our patterns. And Yang," he added, a cold edge returning to his voice, "has made it personal. He threatened the one who preserved my life. That in the old language is an insult that demands answer." The offer hung in the air, immense and dangerous. Disappearing meant safety, a return to being no one. Staying meant stepping fully into the shadows, becoming a part of the very world she'd been hiding from. But it also meant purpose. It meant using her skills not just to clean up blood, but to prevent it. And a treacherous, quiet part of her, the part that had felt more alive in those 90 seconds of crisis than in the past year of numbness, was leaning toward the storm. "What would being a consultant entail?" she asked, her voice low. "First," Minjun said, "it entails understanding what you are defending. Tomorrow you will see the business, not the front but the engine. Then you will decide." He closed his eyes, exhaustion finally claiming him. "Yi will show you to new rooms. You are under my protection now. That is both a shield and a target. Remember that." Anya was led to a suite in the west wing, larger and more secure than her maid's quarters. It had a view of the guarded grounds. As she stood at the window, she replayed the day. The gunshot, the blood, the cold feel of the crystal vase in her hand, the satisfying asterisk thud of Mr. Kim hitting the wall. She had crossed a line. The quiet, broken woman was gone, shattered by necessity. In her place was someone who had remembered what it was to act, to matter. The next morning, Yi arrived. No uniform, just a silent escort. They left the main house, entered a discreet elevator that descended deep below the estate. The doors opened not to a basement but to a sophisticated operations center. Screens showed shipping manifests, port camera feeds, financial charts. This was the brain of Minjun's empire, and it was preparing for war. Yi pointed to a massive digital map. "These are our primary port accesses. Yang's faction is moving here and here to intercept key shipments this week. The product is specialty electronics. The euphemism was clear: contraband. Our usual response would be a show of force, men, weapons. But the boss thinks that's what they expect. He wants your assessment. Anya studied the map, the logistics. Her mind didn't see criminal enterprise. She saw a supply line, a military logistics chain. And she saw its vulnerabilities not as a thug would, but as a soldier trained in disruption. They're expecting a physical defense, she said slowly. What if they don't get one? What if the shipment thereafter simply vanishes before it reaches the conflict point? Yi frowned. How? The containers are already en route. You have the manifests. You have the port authority feeds, Anya said, ideas cohering. A rerouting instruction filed at the right moment, a bureaucratic delay triggered. A sudden, last-minute customs inspection on their asterisk trucks, not yours. You don't fight them for the cargo. You make the cargo disappear from the board. You use the system against them. There was a long silence. Yi stared at her, then a slow smile spread across his face. It was the first time she'd seen anything close to warmth from him. That, he said, is not how we think. He picked up a secure phone. Sir, the consultant has a proposal. You're going to want to hear it. Upstairs, Minjun listened, his expression inscrutable. When Yi finished, Minjun looked at Anya with new intensity. A feint, using paperwork as a weapon. He nodded slowly. Implement it. Let's see if a soldier's tactics work in our war. And so, Anya Clark found herself orchestrating her first criminal operation. Not with a gun, but with a forged email, a hacked scheduling system, and a well-timed anonymous tip to a non-corrupt port official. 48 hours later, Yang's men staged an elaborate ambush on a convoy that never arrived. The shipment was safely tucked in a different warehouse, under a different name. The cost to Yang was financial, and more importantly, a blow to his intelligence apparatus. He had been outmaneuvered by a ghost. When the successful result was confirmed, Minjun summoned her again. He was standing by his window, moving carefully but on his feet. You cost him face and money, a good first strike. He turned. The debt remains, but now it is shared. You have drawn blood in my defense. Yang will add your name to his list if he hasn't already. He stepped closer. So, the choice is final. You are in this world now. The question is, how deep do you want to swim? Before she could answer, Yi burst into the room, his face ashen. Sir, we have a problem. It's not about the ports. He looked at Anya, then back at Minjun. They didn't go after the business. They went after the source. They found her. Anya's blood went cold. Who did they find? Yi's eyes were full of pity. Your sister, ma'am, Chloe, in Phoenix. They made contact this afternoon. The floor seemed to tilt. Chloe, her younger sister, a graphic designer living a quiet, normal life 2,000 miles away. The one person Anya had kept tenuously in touch with, the one thread to a world before the army, before the blood. She'd been so careful, using burned phones, never giving details. But Mr. Kim had done the initial hearing vetting. He had all her records. He'd known. Minjun's face was a mask of cold fury. This is the move, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. They cannot touch me here, so they touch what is mine to protect. They make it personal to force an error. He looked at Anya, seeing the panic she was fighting to control. They will not hurt her yet. She is bait. They want you to run to surface, or they want to trade. Anya's mind raced, the soldier's calculus battling with the sister's terror. I have to call her, I have to warn her. And tell her what? Minjun asked sharply. That her sister is embroiled in a gang war, that men will come for her. You will terrify her and accomplish nothing. My people are already en route. They will extract her before Yang's team can move. He gestured to Yi, who nodded and left to coordinate. She will be brought here under our protection. It is the only way. The logic was sound, but it felt like a cage tightening. Her last connection to a normal life was being sucked into the vortex. This is because of me, Anya whispered. No, Minjun corrected, his gaze unwavering. This is because of me. Yang is sending a message. He can reach anything associated with me. Your skill saved my life, so your pain is now a valid target. This is the cost of the debt. He leaned forward, wincing at the strain on his wound. But understand this, Anya. They have made a critical mistake. They have defined the fight in personal terms. That is a language I am fluent in. Over the next 36 hours, Anya existed in a state of suspended dread. Minjun's operatives, a team of 3 ex-Special Forces contractors, executed a flawless extraction. They intercepted Chloe outside her yoga studio, used a convincing cover story about witness protection related to Anya's vague government work, and had her on a private jet before she could truly process what was happening. When Chloe arrived at the estate, confused and frightened, the reunion was heartbreaking. Anya had to look her sister in the eye and lie, spinning a tale of mistaken identity and dangerous corporate espionage. She saw the disbelief in Chloe's eyes, but also the trust. It was a new kind of wound. With Chloe secured in a comfortable but closely watched suite, the strategic landscape shifted. Yang's bait had been snatched away. His response was not a retreat but an escalation in a different direction. 2 of Minjun's legitimate businesses, a high-end import warehouse and a chain of laundromats used for cash flow, were hit with simultaneous, devastating raids by federal agencies. Not local police, but the FBI and Homeland Security. This was no longer just a street war. Yang had leveraged a connection to flip the full weight of the state against his rival. The operations center buzzed with controlled panic. Lawyers were summoned. Minjun watched the live feeds from the raids, his jaw set. "He is using the system I have paid to avoid," he muttered. "This is expensive for him. He must have promised someone a very big prize." The prize, they soon learned, was Minjun himself. The warrants were flimsy, but the discovery wouldn't be. The raids were fishing expeditions, designed to find any irregularity, any leverage to bring a RICO case. Anya observed from the periphery, the scale of the conflict dawning on her. This wasn't a back-alley knife fight. It was a multi-front war involving finance, law, and raw power. Her successful port diversion now seemed like a childish prank. Minjun turned to her, his strategist's mind working. "They use the rules as a weapon. You suggested that. Now they do it back. How do we counter a legal attack?" Anya thought of the army, of fighting an insurgency that used the media and local grievances as shields. You don't counter it directly. You change the narrative. You give them a bigger, juicier target to chase. Minjun raised an eyebrow. "Continue." "What if those federal agents find something during their raid, but not what they're looking for? What if they find evidence pointing squarely at Yang's operations? A hidden ledger, a shipping manifest for something truly heinous, planted where they can't miss it. You don't stop the raid. You weaponize it. Turn their attack back on its sponsor." The room went silent. Yi slowly smiled again. Minjun stared at her, then gave a single, slow nod. "You have a devious mind, Sergeant Clark. Yi, make it happen. It needs to be flawless." The operation was dubbed Mirror. While lawyers delayed and distracted, a separate team, using insider knowledge from turned members of Yang's crew, planted fabricated but credible evidence linking the raided businesses to Yang's human trafficking operations, a line even Minjun's organization refused to cross. It was a nuclear option. The effect was immediate and chaotic. The federal focus split. Yang's political protector, sensing the heat, began to backpedal. The legal pressure on Minjun's assets eased overnight as agencies turned to investigate the new, more horrific leads. Yang's organization was suddenly on the defensive, scrambling to contain the fallout from within its own ranks. The cost for Yang was immense, not just in legal fees, but in trust. His allies started to question his competence and his danger to them. In the war room, as reports of the successful diversion came in, Minjun looked at Anya with something beyond respect. It was partnership. "You have changed the nature of this conflict," he said. "You fight with information and misdirection. These are officers' tactics." "I was a non-commissioned officer," Anya replied. "We're the ones who actually get it done." That night, Minjun invited her to his private study, not for a briefing, but for a drink. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handing one to her. "A debt remains," he said, clinking his glass gently against hers. "But its shape has changed. It is no longer a simple life for a life. It is an alliance. You have proven your value is not in a single moment, but in a continued campaign. I would have you stay, not as a consultant, as the head of my strategic counterintelligence, a new division. The offer was staggering: power, purpose, and immense danger. And my sister will be safe. She can live here, or we can establish her anywhere in the world with a new identity. The choice is hers, but you belong in the fight. I see it in you. The numbness is gone. He was right. The PTSD fog that had haunted her was still there, but it was now background noise to the sharp clarity of engagement. She was using her skills, her mind. She was protecting someone. She mattered. "I'll stay," she said, the words feeling irrevocable. "On one condition. We draw a line: no trafficking. Ever. That evidence we planted was a lie, but I won't be part of making it a truth." Minjun held her gaze, then nodded. "A condition I accept. My uncle's world was built on flesh and fear. I am building something else. You will help me build it." It was the most honest statement of intent he'd ever given her. In that moment, the employer-employee dynamic dissolved completely. They were co-conspirators, bound by debt, loyalty, and a shared vision of a different kind of empire. For 2 weeks, a tense calm settled. Chloe, though still anxious, began to adjust, working remotely on her design projects. Anya worked with Yi to build her new department, reviewing personnel, setting up secure protocols. She was walking a tightrope between two lives: the caring sister in the East Wing, the tactical commander in the Ops Center. Then the other shoe dropped. It came not from Yang, but from the past. Anya received a secure, encrypted message on a channel only active duty intelligence should have. It was short, and it froze her core. "Sergeant Clark, your skills are noted. Your current employer is of interest. Time to choose sides. Colonel J. Petrov." Attached was a grainy, recent photo of her leaving the estate gates with Yi. Petrov, her old battalion commander, now rumored to be with Defense Intelligence. The government hadn't been fooled by the planted evidence. They'd been watching, and they saw her not as a victim, but as an asset who had gone native. They were giving her a choice: become their informant inside Minjun's organization, or be treated as a hostile entity, traitor or prisoner. She showed the message to Minjun. He read it, his face hardening into granite. "This is a cleaner threat than Yang," he said. "You cannot plant evidence against this. You cannot shoot it." He looked at her. "This is your exit if you want it. A return to your flag. They would likely immunize you, give you a new life." "And what happens to you if I walk that path?" she asked, already knowing the answer. "I would be indicted within 6 months. My organization would be dismantled. Yang would pick over the remains. Your sister's safety would be uncertain once their protection deal with you ended." He stated it coldly, a fact, not a guilt trip. But there was a third option, unspoken in the air. She could tell Petrov to go to hell, and they would both become targets of the United States government. A war on 3 fronts: Yang's syndicate, the federal agencies, and now military intelligence. It was an impossible position. Anya took a deep breath, the weight of the choice crushing. She thought of Chloe's trusting face, of Minjun's grudging respect, of the satisfying click of a plan coming together in the Ops Center. She thought of the uniform she'd once been proud to wear, and the cold bureaucracy that had cut her loose when she broke. "I made my choice when I stayed," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "I'm not going back, and I'm not letting them take what's mine." She met Minjun's eyes. "But we can't fight the DIA head-on. We need to disappear. Not just me, you, the entire operation. We need to vanish and let Yang and the government tear each other apart." Minjun stared at her, a slow, fierce pride lighting his eyes. "A strategic retreat, a ghosting," he nodded. "It is possible. I have contingencies, but it means burning everything here. The estate, the businesses, the identity. We would have to start from nothing somewhere else." "We'd have each other's backs," Anya said. "And we'd have the only thing that really matters in a war: better intelligence." She pointed to Petrov's message. "He contacted me. That's a vulnerability. We don't run from him, we use him. We feed him just enough truth to point him at Yang, and then we vanish in the crossfire." A grim smile touched Min Jun's lips. "You are teaching me to fight a truly modern war, Sergeant." He stood, decision made. "We ghost. We pull everything out, liquidate and collapse the tunnels behind us. But first," he said, his voice dropping, "we give our friends a proper goodbye. We ensure Yang is so preoccupied with the government wolf at his door that he doesn't notice the rabbits have fled." The plan was audacious, complex, and incredibly dangerous. It was called Operation Exodus, and as Anya began drafting the first phase, a carefully crafted disinformation feed for her former colonel, she realized the final line had been crossed. There was no going back to being Anya Clark, the broken vet, or Anya the Maid. She was something new now, a guardian in the shadows, a partner in a doomed empire, and she was about to orchestrate its most brilliant move, its own destruction. Operation Exodus began not with a bang, but with a whisper, a single encrypted data packet sent from Anya's terminal to Colonel Petrov's secure server. It contained carefully crafted intelligence, shipping routes, financial trails, and meeting locations, all pointing to Yang's central command hub in Newark. The information was 90% accurate, making it irresistible. The hook was baited with the one thing Petrov wanted most: a clean, prosecutable win against a major syndicate. The 10% inaccuracy was crucial. It would lead federal teams to the right building, but to the wrong floor, buying the final hours they needed. Over the next 72 hours, Minjun's empire underwent controlled demolition. Shell companies were drained and dissolved. The estate was stripped of anything digital or personal. The remaining loyal crew were given generous severance and instructions to scatter. It was a masterclass in vanishing. Anya watched as the mansion that had been her gilded cage transformed into an empty shell. She felt no nostalgia, only the sharp focus of a soldier executing a retreat under fire. The most delicate part was Chloe. Anya sat her down and told her a version of the truth, that the danger was worse than she'd said, that they had to disappear completely. To her astonishment, Chloe didn't cry or resist. She looked at her sister, at the new steel in her eyes, and simply said, "You're back. The you that went away to war never really came home. Until now, I'm in." Chloe's design skills became an asset. She began crafting flawless new identity documents. The frightened civilian was gone, replaced by a determined ally. The transformation was the first true victory of the entire operation. On the appointed night, simultaneous triggers were pulled. Petrov's task force, combined with FBI units, descended on Yang's Newark headquarters. At the same time, anonymous tips flooded rival gangs and the press about the raid, creating a media circus and drawing every rival and opportunist in the tri-state area to the scene like sharks to blood. Yang, caught between a federal raid and a street-level free-for-all for his territory, was completely contained. His empire began to implode in real time, consumed by chaos from above and below. As police scanners blared with the news of the massive operation, Min Jun, Anya, Chloe, and a core team of 4, Yi included, walked out of the Alpine estate for the last time. They left the lights on and the doors unlocked. They carried nothing but backpacks with new identities, cash, and untraceable burner phones. They drove in 2 separate, nondescript vans to a private airfield. A small jet waited, its flight plan logged for Montreal. It would never arrive. Somewhere over the Adirondacks, the jet's transponder winked out. A pre-programmed distress signal was sent. To air traffic control and any military radar watching, it would look like a tragic crash in a remote, frozen lake. Search and recovery would find wreckage, a plane purchased for this sole purpose and remotely piloted into the water. The passengers, however, had parachuted into the darkness over a different lake, where a seaplane waited to ferry them north, across the border, and into a new void. 3 months later, a small coastal town in British Columbia, Canada. The house was modern, made of cedar and glass overlooking the Pacific. It was protected not by walls and guards, but by obscurity and perfect paperwork. Anya Clark no longer existed. She was Anna Kerr, a freelance security consultant. Min Jun was Michael Jang, a venture capitalist specializing in shipping logistics. Chloe was thriving, running a small digital design firm that served clients worldwide from her laptop. The war was 2,000 miles away and belonged to ghosts. One evening, Minjun Michael found Anya on the deck watching the sunset. He handed her a tablet. On it was a news digest. The headlines were conclusive. Korean crime syndicate leader apprehended in federal raid. Rival faction leader reported missing, feared dead in gang retribution. Major organized crime network dismantled in tri-state area. The cleanup had been thorough. Yang was in federal custody, facing life without parole. His organization was ash. Petrov had gotten his win, and the trail had gone cold on the mysterious informant and the vanished rival. The case was closed. The debt, Minjun said quietly, gazing at the same ocean view. It is settled, not by repayment but by transformation. You gave me my life. In return, I gave you a war. And then we gave each other a way out. The scales are not balanced. They are irrelevant. Anya nodded, feeling a peace she hadn't known in a decade. What now? Do we build again? He turned to her, his expression thoughtful. We already are. The legitimate shipping consultancy is thriving. Chloe's business is growing. Yi runs our security with a team of 4, not 40. We are small, quiet, and clean. This is the empire I wanted to build, one that doesn't need a fortress. He paused. But I have a new proposal, one that doesn't involve crime or war or disappearing. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, black velvet box. He didn't open it. He simply placed it in her hand. This is not a transaction. It is not a payment on a debt. It is a question for the future. One you can answer anytime, or never. It changes nothing between us except perhaps the label. Anya opened the box. Inside was a ring, but not a traditional diamond. It was a band of dark tungsten inlaid with a single strip of jade. Protection and a new beginning. She looked from the ring to his face, saw the uncharacteristic vulnerability there, and smiled. She closed the box and put it in her own pocket. I'll hold on to the question, she said. For now, the answer is today, and tomorrow, that's enough. He nodded, accepting her terms, and they stood together in the fading light. The bond between them was no longer that of debtor and creditor, nor boss and employee, nor even just partners in strategy. It was something forged in blood and trust, a loyalty that had rewritten both their destinies. The final surprise came a week later. Anya received a secure, one-time message on an old, encrypted channel. It was from Colonel Petrov. It contained no text, only 2 images. The first was the official press photo of Yang in handcuffs. The second was a decades-old picture of a young U.S. Army officer standing with a South Korean intelligence liaison during joint exercises. The officer was Petrov. The liaison was a young man with sharp, familiar features. Minjun's uncle. The message was clear. Petrov hadn't just been hunting a crime lord. He'd been cleaning up an old, messy connection from the Cold War. He'd used Anya, yes, but he'd also, perhaps, given her a path to dismantle the very world that had created her enemy. He'd known who she was with from the start. The game had been bigger than she'd imagined, and she'd been a player, not a pawn. She deleted the message and burned the channel. Some questions were better left unanswered. That night, Anya stood in her new home, the ring box on her dresser, the sound of the ocean through the open window. She was not a maid, nor a medic, nor a fugitive. She was a woman who had pulled a man from the brink, and in doing so had pulled herself back from the edge of oblivion. The debt had been the catalyst, but the loyalty that grew from it was the real foundation. It was a bond that had toppled a criminal empire, outsmarted a government, and built a quiet, powerful life on the other side of the world. She picked up the ring and slid it onto her finger. It fit perfectly. She didn't need to give an answer. The choice, every day, was answer enough. The story that began with a gunshot in a marble foyer ended not with a bang, but with the constant, gentle roar of the Pacific, a sound of permanence and peace. So what is the true value of a life saved? For Anya Clark and Minjun, the calculus was never about money. It was about the unforeseen bond that forms when 2 broken people, from worlds that should never have touched, recognize a kindred resilience in each other. A debt that began as a physical obligation transformed into the foundation of a loyalty so absolute, it became their greatest weapon. They didn't just settle a score, they rewrote the rules of their own existence. This story asks a question that lingers long after the final scene. When you pull someone from the brink, what are you really pulling them toward? For Anya, it was a return to her own strength. For Min Jun, it was a path to a different legacy. Together, they built a bridge between a battlefield's honor and an underworld's code, and found a fragile, powerful peace on the other side. Their tale is a testament to hidden depths, to the idea that the most ordinary person in the room might be the most extraordinary, and that the most transactional relationship might contain the seed of something transformative. It's a reminder that sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is save a life, because the debt that follows can change everything. If you were captivated by this journey of unexpected loyalty and quiet power, there are more stories like this waiting for you. Dive into our catalog for tales of hidden competence, impossible choices, and bonds forged in fire. Your next favorite story is just a click away. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a deep dive into the human stories that defy expectations. Let us know in the comments what you thought of Anya and Min Jun's journey. Where do you think loyalty ends and something else begins? Thank you for watching. Until next time.